The morning rush hour on the subway was always the same chaotic symphony. Maya Chen adjusted her grip on the metal pole as the train swayed through the underground tunnels, her messenger bag pressed against her hip. She had learned to find calm in the chaos. Watching the blur of faces and listening to the rhythmic clatter of wheels on tracks. Today felt different somehow. Maybe it was the interview she had later that morning, or perhaps it was simply the way the early sunlight filtered through the subway car windows, casting everything in a golden glow. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves about the job opportunity at Morrison and Associates, the prestigious marketing firm she had dreamed of working for since college. The train began to slow as it approached the next station. Maya glanced at her phone, still plenty of time before her interview. She had deliberately taken an earlier train, knowing that being late would only add to her anxiety. The doors opened with their familiar whoosh, and a small crowd began to shuffle in. Among the new passengers was a young man in a navy blue button-down shirt, pushing a gray stroller with one hand while balancing a black backpack on his shoulder. He looked to be in his early 30s, with kind eyes and an easy smile as he maneuvered through the crowded car. A toddler sat in the stroller, clutching what appeared to be a small white stuffed animal. Maya watched as the man found a spot near the doors, positioning the stroller so it wouldn't block the aisle. The little girl in the stroller, she couldn't be more than 2 years old, was babbling happily, her chubby fingers wrapped around her toy. The man leaned down to adjust her blanket, his voice gentle as he spoke to her in soft tones that Maya couldn't quite make out over the ambient noise of the train. The scene warmed Maya's heart. In a city that often felt impersonal and rushed, there was something beautiful about witnessing this quiet moment of tenderness between father and daughter. She found herself smiling as she watched the toddler's animated expressions. The way she seemed to be having an entire conversation with her stuffed animal. The train lurched slightly as it picked up speed, and Maya tightened her grip on the pole. She noticed the man doing the same, his protective instincts kicking in as he steadied the stroller with both hands. The little girl seemed completely unfazed by the motion, still chattering away to her toy. Then it happened. As the train took a particularly sharp curve, the small white stuffed animal slipped from the toddler's grasp. Maya watched in what felt like slow motion as the toy tumbled from the stroller and rolled across the floor of the moving train. The little girl immediately began to fuss, her small hands reaching out toward where her beloved toy had fallen. The man looked down at his daughter, then toward where the toy had rolled, clearly torn between comforting his child and retrieving the fallen object. Other passengers seemed oblivious to the small drama unfolding. Lost in their phones or morning newspapers, without thinking, Maya stepped forward. The white stuffed rabbit, she could see now that it was a soft, plush bunny with long ears and a pink nose, had come to rest near her feet. She bent down and picked it up, brushing off a small piece of debris that had stuck to its fur. "Excuse me," she said, making her way through the crowded car toward the man in his stroller. "I think this belongs to someone." The man looked up, and Maya was struck by the genuine gratitude in his expression. "Oh, thank you so much," he said, his voice warm with relief. "You're a lifesaver. This is Mr. Bunny, and Emma here absolutely cannot live without him." As if on cue, the toddler Emma reached out eagerly for her toy, her fussing immediately stopping as Maya placed the rabbit back in her small hands. The little girl hugged the bunny tightly to her chest, then looked up at Maya with bright, curious eyes. "Thank you," Emma said in her sweet toddler voice. The words slightly muffled by the bunny's fur. Maya felt her heart melt. "You're very welcome, sweetie," the man smiled. "I'm Michael, by the way, Michael Morrison, and this is Emma." "Maya," she replied, extending her hand. "Maya-shun." They shook hands briefly, and Maya noticed how his handshake was firm but not overpowering. Professional yet warm. There was something familiar about his demeanor, a quiet confidence that reminded her of the executives she had studied in business school. "Are you headed to work?" Michael asked, making polite conversation as the train continued its journey through the city. "Actually, I have a job interview this morning," Maya said, then added with a nervous laugh. "I'm trying not to think about it too much." I'm sure you'll do great, Michael said encouragingly. What kind of work are you in? Marketing, Maya replied. I'm hoping to get into brand strategy, maybe at a larger firm where I can really make an impact. Something flickered across Michael's expression. Was it recognition? But before Maya could analyze it further, the train's automated voice announced the next station. This is my stop, Michael said, beginning to maneuver the stroller toward the doors. Thank you again for rescuing Mr. Bunny. Emma would have been inconsolable. As if understanding the conversation, Emma held up her rabbit and waved it at Maya. Bye, nice lady. Maya waved back, watching as Michael pushed the stroller off the train. Through the window, she could see him lifting Emma out of the stroller and pointing back at the train, probably telling her to wave goodbye. The little girl pressed her face against the window, Mr. Bunny clutched in her arms, and Maya waved until the train pulled away from the station. The rest of the journey passed quietly. Maya found herself thinking about the brief encounter, how such a small gesture had created a moment of connection between strangers. She hoped Michael and Emma had a wonderful day ahead of them. 2 hours later, Maya sat in the reception area of Morrison and Associates, her palms slightly damp despite her best efforts to stay calm. The office was everything she had imagined. Sleek, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the city skyline. Maya-chan? A receptionist called her name. Mr. Morrison will see you now. Maya stood, smoothing down her skirt and picking up her portfolio. She followed the receptionist down a hallway lined with awards and framed advertisements, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. The receptionist stopped at a corner office and knocked gently. Mr. Morrison? Maya-chan is here for her. Interview. Send her in, came a familiar voice from inside. Maya stepped into the office, and her breath caught in her throat. Behind the large mahogany desk sat Michael, the same Michael from the subway train, though now he was wearing a crisp suit jacket over his navy shirt. On his desk, she could see a framed photo of Emma, and beside it, unmistakably, was a small white stuffed rabbit. Michael looked up from his papers, and for a moment they simply stared at each other. Then, slowly, he smiled. Well, he said, standing up and extending his hand, it seems Mr. Bunny was quite the matchmaker today. Maya shook his hand, her initial shock giving way to wonder and then to laughter. I guess sometimes the universe has a plan. Indeed it does, Michael replied, gesturing for her to take a seat. Now, let's talk about your future at Morrison and Associates.